Our soul is multidimensional, and it exists throughout a long period of time. It's infinite, really. There's no end, no beginning. It simply is. And if we think of how the universe is made, it's like an infinity symbol, and it's kind of like a multi-dimensional infinity symbol too, where you can wrap all the way around it. And the way that past lives and future lives work is that everything actually is all happening within that plane all at once. So when we aren't humans, when we're dead, or we're just existing in the ethers, time and space don't exist. So time and space are a human perception of the human construct. So it's our perception of this three-dimensional linear construct of there's birth, death, and whatever this is in a life. But if you think about it, after death, there's another birth, and then there's another life, and then there's death, and then there's another birth, and then there's another life. And they're all happening. Though when we're in this reality, we're able to connect with past lives, future lives, and really they're all happening at once, intertwined interdimensionally. And what happens is right now, so my soul is in my body, or is it? I don't know. So it's in my body, but what if in my past life, let's say if I died in 1985 in my past life and I was someone's grandma, well, that person is still alive and I might be with them as their spirit guide, one of their guardian angels. So part of my spirit is with that person. What if I was a famous person in a past life? What if I was Gandhi? I don't know. Hopefully I wasn't, well, who knows, whatever. I could be anyone. Yeah, so what if I was Gandhi and I'm existing as a spirit guide now for millions of people around the planet. So in a way, I'm existing all over the place in different bodies, in different lifetimes. But what if in my past life I was someone like Mother Teresa, who, and this, I'm throwing people out there, like we're just using examples here, but someone, I choose like the most saintly people, but they're not even. If you look at Gandhi and some of his history in his life, he was by no means perfect. So I also don't want us to like think that some people are like icons and that they were perfect and saints or whatever. Mother Teresa, like anyone you think of, whatever. I'm just throwing out these people. But let's say if I were Mother Teresa, Mother Teresa was alive at the same time as me. And what if I was her, but I'm also me? And so what if a part of my soul was still operating in her, but then once I was born, a part of my soul was operating more in me? And what if this is what happens with past lives and future lives, that you don't necessarily need to die in one life in order for your spirit to then go into another body? So if our souls are multidimensional, why couldn't they exist in two places at once, or in two bodies at once, or two lives at once? And this is where things start getting a little complicated, because as humans, we aren't used to this idea or this concept, especially in the last 2,000 years, how we've been living more with like biblical teachings of the spirit and it being very one sort of linear dimensional thing, where when you die, it's almost like we see heaven as it's all us still looking like us living in the sky in the clouds. That's not necessarily how I perceive it. I perceive that when we die, we don't necessarily look like this. We're simply energy whenever we die. That's our soul, and our spirit is energy. We can exist even in plants, in trees, in mountains, caves. There are so many parts of this earth that house souls and spirits, and you can go visit these places and feel the energy of ancestors in them. But those ancestors might not only be living in those places, they're also living within us. So my soul might exist in Mount Shasta as well. It's existing in many places at once, and this is where we can feel connected to so many different things in different places and different people at once, because we're multidimensional and existing in many spaces all at once, because time and space don't actually exist. And when we're a soul, we're a little bit more like a radio signal, where we can be tapped into certain places or people just like that. And then if we go a layer deeper, what if these past lives and present lives and future lives, what if they're all happening at once, but different parts of the planet? So we could think of that more as parallel lives. What if part of my soul is living in Africa as a woman there who's got her life, and I'll never see her in this life. I'll never know any of her friends necessarily. And she's in a completely different part of the world as me. But we're going through things in parallel, almost as though it had been a past life and future life. But if time doesn't really exist, then why would it have to be in the past or in the future? Why couldn't it just be two lives happening at once, but not fully being conscious of it? Because in this human body, we just aren't open to a lot of stuff, to be very real. Like we're very limited in our knowledge and understanding of universal truths. We're like kindergartners, and there's so much more outside of us that we aren't fully aware of. It's just, there's so much that we can't know for sure. There's so much, and anything that you may believe, you may not even realize what your blind spot is, or what you, like the stuff that you can't know what you don't know. So it's important for us to be really humble in knowing that there's a lot that we don't know. And this is just an idea that I'm throwing out there. I can't prove that my soul is existing in multiple places at once, at least not right now. And there may be a way in the future how we have fingerprints, we may have soul prints, where we're able to actually identify our soul and see that it may be more predominantly in specific people or specific places or parts of the earth. We may even see it existing around a spirit. Like when I'm away from Bailey, who's my parents' dog, I feel like my spirit is still with her in a way, almost like I'm a spirit guide for her from afar. And I feel like she's also a spirit guide for me from afar, even though she's still alive. I feel her spirit and I feel that connection with her, even from afar. And the difference with this, why I'm showing or using this example as opposed to a person, is that if I were thinking of a person, normally I'd be able to communicate with them in the 3D. But if I can only communicate with Bailey in the 5D, it becomes a lot more obvious to me that we actually can be spirit guides for each other and connected with one another even when we're not together physically. And same with a person. If you aren't able to communicate with a person in the 3D, you can still be communicating with them in the 5D more telepathically. And so this is how, like, we can actually physically be with each other in spirit, if that makes sense, even though we aren't physically there in person. So I hope that some of this makes sense. I don't know, I'm sure there's stuff that I've left out because this is like a pretty broad topic, but if any of you guys have questions, please let me know. If you guys have your own perceptions or anything that you've experienced on this topic, then also let me know. I'd love to hear more about this, and just getting into that dialogue and conversation about the multidimensionality of our soul and our spirit. So thank you.